Yo dudes, this is a part in a series where I go over my thoughts on Sonic games. Here's the full list so you're not weirded out. It's Sonic Adventure time today, so let's begin. Anyways, the Marcor channel's pretty chill. Maybe you could subscribe or something. Sonic Adventure 1, the game that started it all. I mean, not all, but, you know, my relationship with this game has been all over the place throughout the past few years. It's kind of insane. I played through it in 2023 and kinda hated it, not gonna lie. I thought the controls were awkward and difficult to use, and the story did not hit as hard as it clearly should have thanks to the presentation. However, once upon an October 2024, during the beginning of my obsession with this franchise, I replayed the game with a brand new mindset and knowledge of the actual story, and instantly, changes were made. I realized how truly exceptional the level design was and how the controls give you so much freedom with how you tackle those levels. The story finally started to click and I got genuinely invested in the history of the Echidna tribe. And overall, the game became something I cherish and love to this day. So let's talk about it. I'll go over each campaign in order of when you get to play them in-game, starting with Sonic and ending with Gamma. We'll focus on the gameplay and level design at first, and then go over the overarching story at the end to make everything make sense. One last thing, for the recordings, I used a selection of mods from Better Sonic Adventure DX, mainly for the widescreen support. I'll link it in the description as I think it's the best way to play this game. Without further ado, it's time to open our hearts as we dive into Sonic Adventure. I mean, was there really any doubt about what campaign is the best in the game? Sonic has 10 levels, the most amount of movement options, and no wacky gimmicks that could alienate his gameplay style to your average Sonic fan. It's crazy how well they knocked it out of the park with this first 3D entry in terms of level design, so let's get into it. You start with an easy fight against Chaos Zero, nothing really to mention here, but our first level, Emerald Coast, is a fantastic time. The level design in this game is very open, and allows you to perform tons of quick time saves, such as this spin dash jump over the bridge here, but it also opens itself for tons of exploration. There are loads of secret item pods all over the levels if you just go look for them quickly. There's so much replayability here. Emerald Coast in particular allows for an easy way to teach the player the controls, whilst also being a great one to replay. Of course we get the iconic set piece of the killer whale chase, but there's also great little pieces of Sonic level design that are just great to run through, like this area here. On any newbie's first time, they'll probably end up taking their time on the bottom route, maybe not even knowing you can run on walls in this fashion, but the replay adds so much more challenge to the run, whilst also being generally shorter thanks to the shortcut and speed shoes. I love it. Banger first stage to set off a banger game. After a kinda boring fight against the Egg Hornet, we get to Windy Valley. This stage is just nice. It's definitely one of the less interesting ones to talk about in this game, but that does not make it bad. The first part has a lot to do and is probably the best part of the level, but the other two become a lot more linear. The tornado setting is pretty cool, but that's about it. The final part is probably the weakest due to being just a bunch of squiggly lines, but it does thrive on showing how fast you can truly get. Plus, the secrets and branching paths aren't completely gone. Overall, a pretty damn good stage, even if it does get lost in the rest of this game's greatness. So, we get the Lightspeed shoes in Station Square, which allows us to get to the worst level in the game. Casinopolis. It's pinball. Need I say more? Okay, let me explain the stage itself. So you gotta get 400 rings to reach the vault where the Chaos Emerald lies, right? So you play one of the pinball machines to snag enough rings and it just takes forever. 9 times out of 10, you're making multiple round trips to get enough. And even if you don't, it still takes around 10 minutes to do it this way. Not only that, but the physics are kinda geriatric, and if you get an Eggman triple in the slot machine, you just straight up lose rings. Wonderful. You know what's funny though? If you intentionally lose the pinball, you get sent to the garbage dump, where there are around 200 rings for you to snag. I got softlocked 6 minutes in with 220 rings, reset and did the garbage route, and ended up with around 260 in 2.5 minutes. Why have we gone through the pinball then? Even then, the garbage area is boring to play anyway, so yeah, the worst level in the game by far. At least the Knights-themed pinball is cool. Knights is that one game every Sonic fan knows, but has never even thought about trying. Don't worry, I'm there with them. After getting this ice key to this lock, we can go to Icecap, another pretty mid-level. It's obviously not as bad as Casinopolis, which is just boring. It's just that I could never remember this level when thinking about this game. We get these really enclosed spaces to carefully platform around, and it's just not that fun even when speedrunning. Weirdly enough, the final section with the snowboard is probably the best part due to the sheer spectacle alone. It's way more exciting than the kind of dull stuff that came before, a big reason for that being the music's tonal shift. Small pet peeve of mine, but I hate it when collectibles are placed in sections where the camera is placed in front of Sonic and he's running towards you. It's mostly fine in the boost games, but in the adventure-styled ones, it's just annoying and entirely memory-based. Anyhow, yeah, just a forgettable level, especially when levels like Cool Edge and, they should just make more ice levels.
Oh no.
An extremely quick and easy confrontation against Knuckles. Oh no. A long and boring fight against Chaos 4.
Oh no.
Sky Chase. There's a reason why people never really talk about these sections of both Sonic and Tails' playthroughs, and that's because they're boring as hell. All you do is mindlessly aim and shoot at random ships that fly by for 3 to 5 minutes. That is all. Amy! She takes us to Twinkle Park, which is about as good as Windy Valley in my eyes. We begin with a decently fun racing section for the first half, but that's really all there is to it. The best thing about this level is probably the theming. It goes all in on the amusement park aesthetic, starting the second half with a roller coaster ride and including bowling segments which reward you with rings. Whilst the gameplay is pretty linear at the end of the day, it definitely has one of the more satisfying flows to it compared to the last few levels, which makes me remember it a lot more fondly than the others. There are still some great shortcuts though, such as this one over the roofs. A definite improvement over the previous levels, but the next one is a great example of Sonic at its finest. Time to get into Speed Highway. Story-wise, this level is pretty much pointless, just showing how lost Sonic is when trying to find Amy, but man does the gameplay carry it. There are so many alternate routes, challenging obstacles, and fantastic set pieces which come together to create one of the best levels not only in the game, but also out of all of the adventure-styled games. From grabbing onto the bottoms of helicopters to sprinting down a huge drop with a loop crescendo, and of course the big moment of running down the building being chased by cop speeders, this level has it all. I could go on and on about why I love this level to bits, but why do it here when I could do it with the next one? After finding Amy and losing her again to Eggman, we reach Red Mountain, which is probably my favorite level in the game gameplay-wise. I absolutely love how there is always a hard-to-reach path whenever you drop off a rocket. It creates a really fun reaction obstacle to try and reach the higher path. I also love spin dashing around all the crumbling bridges and the sections with big gaps. This level's so nice and whimsical. Oh god! The second section is even better, leaving itself open for so much use of the spin dash whilst also being a challenge to master. Man, I love it! The aesthetic change is also a great touch, contrasting the previous section amazingly. I can imagine some kids being traumatized over this place. Overall, Red Mountain is a level I can't get enough of, with every section being super fun and memorable all around. We're at the Egg Carrier now, and it's time for Skydeck, another really good level. The first section features a ton of areas to get to, plus this really cool section towards the end when you're being shot by this massive turret and have to reach it fast. I tend to forget this second section exists for some reason, but it has the wind mechanic and pretty basic platforming. There's not really a lot to it, which might be why I forget a lot, huh? The last section can be pretty slow if you play it wrong, but can be quite fun if you learn how to do it fast. This level is heavily carried by that first section the more that I think about it. I always think it's way better than it actually is. Better than levels like Windy Hill and Twinkle Park, but not by much. So anyway, we get another character fight, this time against the GOAT E102 Gamma, and Amy tells her not to kill him at the end. She, Tails, and Gamma leave the ship while Sonic chases after Eggman to eventually fight Chaos 6. It's actually an okay fight where you freeze him to attack him. After the fight, Sonic falls into the Mystic Jungle, where he finds this mysterious temple. After entering, we get into our next level, Lost World. I'm not really sure what to think of this level, to be honest. I feel like I should like it a lot more than I do. The atmosphere is its best aspect. It's so mysterious and fascinating to explore and uncover this dark truth, and the gameplay is great as well. The first section is really solid, with some memorable set pieces like this circular tunnel, and it ends with a really unique part where you press 3 buttons to progress. It takes a while, but you can speed it up with some cleverly placed spin dashes. The second section begins in a dark room where you can light it up by shining light on these mirrors scattered about. You don't need to, obviously, it just helps out. We then reach a water slide followed by Sonic pulling in Indiana Jones, another 2 great set pieces. The final gameplay section involves these panels that change your gravity when lit, allowing you to walk along them. These allow for some killer shortcuts like spin dashing to reach much higher locations. After that, the level ends, and it should be a slam dunk, right? Everything I just described sounds like it should be the best. Well, I gotta be honest, I have no idea why it isn't to me. It has so many cool ideas and fleshes them out a ton, but I just can't get into it, and I don't know why. Still a top 5 level, but not top 3 for me personally. Sorry. Well, after a flashback scene we'll touch on later, Sonic finally reaches Eggman's base where the final egg takes place. This level is pretty much the inverse of Lost World to me. Something about it feels right, and I'm not sure what. Maybe it's the absolute killer music in the second section, or it's the general vibe of the level feeling so cool. I'm not sure, but I know I love playing this level. There's not really even a ton to say in depth about the level itself, it's just really fun. Whenever I think about this level, I just get happy, and that's why it's a top 3 in the game for me. Boom. Mic drop. Cool stuff like that. Yeah. The final boss of Sonic's campaign is the Egg Viper, and it's pretty boring and dull and not fun. It's just a lot of waiting to strike, and the fake out at the end gets annoying if you die. And that's Sonic's story. Whilst the levels and gameplay may not reach the same heights as the other adventure-style games, it is definitely a fantastic experience to go through at least once. Going for the extra emblems is also a great time here. The way the rankings work in this game is that each rank has a mission, and the A rank is rewarded after doing the third. The second mission in this campaign, alongside a few others, is to gather 50 rings and beat the level, and the third is to just beat the level under a time limit. It's not as in-depth as Adventure 2's missions, but that means it is much easier to have a good time here and not suffer. In terms of the story tied to Sonic himself, it's a little all over the place, but it is pretty serviceable all things considered. From beginning to end, his goal is to stop Eggman, and he doesn't stop until he knows he's finished. The story does set up the others well though, so why not get into them? To save on time, I won't go in depth over each level for the other campaigns, as they all take sections of Sonic's levels and slightly alter them to work for their gameplay styles. I'll mainly focus on how the characters themselves play within the level designs, and Tails is a solid time. Aside from needing to replay both Sky Chases again, which sucks, Tails plays a lot different to Sonic, whilst not totally alienating people from his style. Each mission is structured like a race to reach the end, and you can utilize Tails' flight for some pretty neat shortcuts. For example, only Tails can reach these green rings in Windy Valley, and that makes this stage pretty good. Casinopolis is just Sonic's garbage section again, with little to no changes as far as I can tell, so that one's the weakest. Icecap just has you do the snowboarding section, so that's another weak one. Speaking of snowboarding, Tails is the only character who goes through the Sandhill minigame. Get your forces jokes out of here, we don't do that kind of thing. It's a little better than the Icecap snowboarding, and that's that. At least the last 2 levels, Skydeck and especially Speed Highway, come out swinging with some really cool shortcuts and branching paths that make those ones easily the best of his campaign. In terms of Tails' story, it's pretty damn good. Each level up to the final one is a chill race against Sonic, and it establishes how Tails depends on Sonic for pretty much everything. This lasts up until before Speed Highway, where Tails is the only one who can save Station Square from being literally blown up by a nuke from Eggman. He calls out to Sonic for help, but then realizes he has to do this alone, and gathers the courage to push through and save the town. I guess I should mention his exclusive boss, the Egg Walker, too, as that fight is kinda decent. One of the better encounters in the game for sure. And that is Tails' story. Whilst it obviously never reaches anywhere close to Sonic's in terms of gameplay and fun, I can see a ton of potential in his mechanics, and would love to see this kind of gameplay expanded upon a lot more in the future. The closest we got to this was probably in Sonic 06, but that's a whole other can of worms for another time. Just know that this campaign is simple fun, and 100% was simple and fun too. Not much else to say, so let's move on to the roughest of the rest of them. Knuckles is an interesting case in these 3D games, as the structure of his levels are completely different from anyone else's. This is probably because of Knuckles' glide and climb abilities, which may have messed with the already existing level design. Basically, the Master Emerald gets taken away from Angel Island again, and Knuckles has got to find all the pieces that are scattered around everywhere. There are 3 pieces of the Master Emerald in each stage, and you explore the stages with the help of a radar that tells you when you're close to any of the pieces, subtle foreshadowing. These are honestly not too bad in this game. The maps are simple, but there isn't much variety or memorability to be honest, with a lot of what's here. I guess Lost World would probably be my favourite stage here, as there's a lot to explore with the chosen map, but I gotta give credit to Casinopolis here. You can explore areas high up the casino that all other characters cannot reach, and it's actually pretty solid. It's the only good version of Casinopolis out there. Unfortunately, the other 3 levels don't really have much to their own. Speed Highway is a good introduction, but it's still forgettable. Red Mountain is decent, but I'm forgetting about it as we speak. And Skydeck actually has an interesting mechanic of changing the tilt of the egg carrier to access certain small rooms. However, it does get pretty annoying needing to reach the lever every time you want to change the tilt, which makes it kind of boring. Again, it's quite fun when you're playing it, but definitely not the most memorable thing in the world. Chaos 2 is this campaign's exclusive fight, and it's actually pretty cool. Chaos puts up a good fight here, blocking direct attacks and creating hard-to-dodge attacks of his own. I died a few times here, it was pretty okay. Side note, I absolutely love the idea of fighting the same creature as a boss that slowly gets more powerful as you progress in the game. It's one of the many great ideas that this game runs with and just nails. In terms of Knuckles' storyline, it's kind of a mixed bag, honestly. On one hand, the fact that they redo the plot of Sonic 3 and Knuckles by having him tricked by Eggman again is pretty lazy, and they could have easily come up with something better. On the other hand, seeing Knuckles slowly understand more about his ancestry and eventually realize that it's not worth knowing about is a really interesting approach. His reaction to its backstory could either come across as him being scared of knowing his past, or him simply not thinking it's worth obsessing over. I love it. Overall, Knuckles' story is a mixed bag, all things considered. I still ultimately enjoyed his campaign, and I enjoyed 100%ing it, but none of it was stuff that I'll remember in like a week, honestly. And that's a shame, as Knuckles is the closest to the characters in the flashback scenes in terms of ancestry. I'll have a lot more to talk about with Adventure 2's Knuckles levels, but that is a long topic I'll save for when the time comes. Now, we get onto the characters with the most unique gameplay styles, starting with... As far as I can tell, most people don't really like playing through Amy's story for whatever reason. I have no idea why though, as I always have a great time playing these stages. It is the shortest campaign in the game, unfortunately, with only 3 levels and 1 boss fight. However, you do explore new areas in each stage, like this trippy area with mirrors and Twinkle Park, so it's still varied enough to feel long to me. The structure of these levels is that sometimes you'll be chased by Zero, this green robot guy who just really wants that bird next to Amy for whatever reason. All you need to do is avoid him and reach the end of the level. This game utilizes this concept in a ton of really cool ways, like having you finish a puzzle which turns on the screens in a room that shows Zero, who then breaks down the way forward. I genuinely really enjoy running away from him. It sorta gave me Resident Evil vibes when I first played it. Man, it's crazy that I can say something in the Sonic franchise feels like Resident Evil. Anyways, my favorite level is definitely Hot Shelter. It is by far the longest and has many interactions with Zero like I mentioned before. Hot Shelter itself is a level theme that is exclusive to the last 3 characters here, which is really neat. Twinkle Park is pretty cool thanks to the Hall of Mirrors section, and Final Egg is just okay. The final and only boss for Amy is Zero, and it's pretty underwhelming. You can easily stun-lock him into the electric fences dotted around the arena, so yeah. In terms of story, Amy definitely got one of the longer ends of the stick here. Her arc is genuinely compelling. She starts off reminiscing about her adventures with Sonic, wishing that things could go back to the excitement of the past, when a little flicky runs into her. Zero gives chase, to where Amy connects the dots and decides to get Sonic's help. After Sonic tries to reason with Amy, they reach Twinkle Park, where Amy gets a bit sidetracked and then gets them both caught by Zero. After giving the best character ever conceived a change of heart, the both of them escape their cell, play a bit of Whack-A-Hedgehog, run through Hot Shelter, and gain memories of the distant past. Once we get to the outside of the egg carrier, hey look, the best character ever conceived is fighting Sonic. Amy swoops in to stop Sonic from destroying that guy, as she knows that this robot is pretty nice. Once that's dealt with, we get back down to Station Square thanks to Tails, and Amy does some thinking. she realizes that she needs to be more independent from Sonic and decides to help the little flicky on her own. This is similar to Tails' story, yes, but the difference is that Tails wants to prove to Sonic how he can be just as strong as him in his own way, and Amy proves to Sonic that she deserves to be respected. Amy's campaign is pretty damn good. I really don't get the hate here. I guess it doesn't really focus on speed much, but that's the point. The levels are more about using your lack of speed to try your best to run away from zero. Having Sonic speed would completely negate the challenge here. Honestly, I'd say this campaign is at least more memorable than Knuckles' to me, and I may even straight up like it more in general. If only there were more levels, then I'd probably love it even more. Anyways, on to Fishman.
Hold on, Froggy, I'm coming!
Big the Cat story is one of the most infamous things to come out of this game. Everybody knows how awful the fishing is, how difficult it is, and some have even failed to reach the final story thanks to how annoying the fishing is here. However, I'm here to tell you that the main story isn't that bad. Fishing for Froggy is actually quite simple. All you gotta do is make sure that the bar on the right doesn't reach the top, and there you go. Is this communicated well at all to you? No, but once you get it, it's not too bad. Thanks to the way the levels are structured, I can't really talk about which levels I like in depth, as you just go to some water and fish. I guess Hot Shelter's probably up there, as you've actually got to play a little bit of the level before reaching the pond, but I don't know. Once you understand how the fishing works, you will have a surprisingly tolerable time. Not 100%ing though, that sucks. Now I can get all angry over Big, as getting all the emblems was one of the worst experiences in any Sonic game. Mission B is to get a 1000 gram fish, and Mission A is to get a 2000 gram fish. Simple, right? Well, it's not that you can just get fish to reach that amount, you need one fish that goes over the amount specified. How are you meant to tell which fish are the ones to grab? This sucked! I broke my spacebar over this. Genuinely, I hated it so much. If there's anything to avoid in this game, it's 100%ing Big's campaign, for certain. You could spend 5 minutes trying to just get one fish, only for it to be 1960 grams, so it doesn't work. Yes, I'm speaking from experience here. Plus, in Hot Shelter and Emerald Coast, there's a good chance that the fish you grabbed will just leave. It'll just fuck off for no reason, making your life even more of a living hell. Do not do this ever. Get a 100% save file once you reach these emblems. Don't even think about doing it. Anyways, the story of Big is mid, but kinda funny, I guess. All you do is find Froggy 5 times, but Big's stupid voice gets me through it. That's all. In conclusion, Big's story is definitely the weakest one here. Why do this mundane fishing minigame when you can... At the very least, Sonic Team spared everyone just wanting to be the story by having the worst of the fishing for the completionists only. So yeah, if fishing didn't become as infamous as it did, this section of the game probably would have been the most forgettable and uninteresting to talk about. I'm glad they redeemed Big the Cat himself in games like Frontiers though. Speaking of redeemed characters, it is time for what is probably the main reason why I wanted to do an Adventure 1 video so soon. E102 Gamma's story is the best of the whole game. It's also mid. What do I mean? Well, let's start with the gameplay first. It's pretty clear that Gamma's gameplay set the building blocks for the shooting levels in Adventure 2, as he has very similar mechanics to those levels. The more you shoot in a chain, the more time you gain. Time is never really a problem until you're doing the level A versions of the stages, but it's still a good time seeing how many seconds you can gain back. In terms of the levels themselves, I'd say Windy Hill is the best, as you can get insanely high chains frequently there. Hot Shelter's pretty long, so that one's up there too. Red Mountain is great as well, and Emerald Coast and Final Egg are pretty basic and underwhelming. Especially Final Egg, you can beat that one in like 20 seconds or something. The bosses are a mixed bag as well, thanks to the easy E-series fights up until the last two. E105 Zeta is pretty cool, even if it is pretty simple. Just shoot the cannons, he died. E101 Mark II is basically in the same boat. Cool, but really easy. I don't really know how to describe my feelings on Gamma's gameplay, honestly. It's just kind of a worse version of Adventure 2's mechs, and that's that. However, I do need to tell you about the story of E102 Gamma. This is genuinely one of the best stories ever told in Sonic's history, and it's finally time for me to go in depth about it. Let's begin. You begin the story at Gamma's creation, where he first sees Dr. Eggman, who tells him about what he is and what his use is. Gamma is told to only obey Eggman, which is a very important detail. Gamma's then sent to the shooting range to practice his skills. Once that's done, you have a quick spar against E101 Beta, Gamma's big brother according to Eggman. Once you beat him, Gamma is allowed to help on the egg carrier, which is not the outcome Eggman was expecting. Beta convinces Eggman to let him in as well, but he calls Beta a spare set of parts. Once the egg carrier is in the sky, Gamma and a few other E-Series robots are gathered together for a special announcement. It's not about Shadow, however, it's about Froggy. He commands the robots to find the frog and bring it to him. Obviously, Gamma's the one who finds Froggy, and once he gives him over, this happens.
All you worthless hunks of junk, be gone!
I especially love the way that E103 looks over to Gamma before disappearing. It's shockingly creepy for the innocent robot. Anyways, we gotta go to the cells to find a funny bird to take to Eggman, but Gamma's not all there in his head, so he enters the wrong room, which leads him to... Beta is broken apart and being forced into something anew. This clearly traumatizes Gamma even more than what happened before, because the only words he can muster when he leaves is...
This is the wrong room.
Anyways, we go the right way this time to find Amy and the little Flicky. Gamma tries to convince Amy to hand the Flicky over, but she retaliates by asking why Gamma wants it, to which he answers by saying he doesn't know. Amy feels bad for Gamma as she states that Eggman failed to give him feelings. However, the Flicky then flies up to Gamma, and after a little staring contest, Gamma suddenly decides to help them out. Amy states that he's not like those other robots, says that she can be friends, and dashes off. Whoa! Gamma's needed at the top of the egg carrier. After a quick fight with Sonic, Amy stops Gamma from killing him. This is the one aspect of the story that I think is done better in the other stories, as the roles are reversed. Sonic's about to kill Gamma, and Amy stops this from happening. I just think that characterizes everyone better than what we get here. Anyhow, this is where Tails takes Amy off the ship, Sonic goes to find Eggman, and Gamma leaves to do some thinking. He thinks about everything he's seen up to this point. Beta's reconstruction, the dissipation of his former allies, Amy's friendliness, and of course, the source of it all, Eggman. I love how these images flash constantly and then stop at Eggman. It shows how Gamma has realized how evil he truly is. Eggman is his enemy now, and Gamma thinks of what to do next. Save the other E-Series robots. You go through a selection of levels now, which end off with a quick fight against one of them. But wait, why are we defeating them instead of saving them? I thought that was the plan. Oh! Mwah! Genius! Perfection! We destroy the robots to save the animals trapped inside. Try and think of a more perfect idea than this. You can't. Once you destroy Zeta, Gamma has only 2 robots left to save. E101 Beta, and...
Gamma.
That is one of the most coldest moments in the franchise. He literally realizes he has to kill himself to complete his mission. Anyways, Beta is destroyed, but he manages to get one last shot on Gamma. The Flicky inside Beta stares at Gamma, who then gets this in his visor. I think you may be able to see where this is going, so I'll play the rest of this cutscene out. Dude, just try not to cry at that man. I genuinely think this story is one of the best this franchise has ever told. Right up there with Shadows from Adventure 2, Silvers from 06, and Black Knight's story. One of the best things about it is that Gamma stayed dead. He has never been brought back in any game, spin-off included, and was kinda replaced by E123 Omega in the future. Don't get me wrong, I love that chaotic, insane robot to death, but man, Gamma will stay true as my favorite robot Eggman has ever made, all thanks to his fantastic story in this game. Gamma's story elevates his campaign to heights not seen by the other characters, even if the gameplay is kinda lackluster all things considered. That's about all I think I need to say, so it's finally time to talk about the Echidna tribe and their horrific actions in the past. Many years ago, the Echidna tribe was thriving. It was the most prosperous clan on the planet, thanks to their leader, Pachacamac, and his ruthlessness. He would try to take over everything he can, and with the help of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, he was unstoppable. However, his daughter, Tikal, under the influence of her grandmother, would attempt to change his ways to a more peaceful approach. Unfortunately, none of her attempts would work, which would lead to the moment where the clan goes too far. In a moment of lust for control, Pachacamac would attempt to seize power from the Master Emerald, which would lead to them trampling over Tikal and innocent Chao just trying to protect them from disaster. However, it was too late. Once the clan reached the Master Emerald, the very god they had been worshipping, Chaos, appeared, and quickly snuffed out a majority of the Echidna tribe. Once Tikal awoke, she used the kind words her grandmother gave her to seal Chaos and herself away into the Master Emerald, never to be seen again. Until Eggman came along. Finding 6 of the Chaos Emeralds alongside Chaos in an attempt to take over Station Square and rebuild it in his own image, he was ultimately unsuccessful thanks to Sonic and the gang. However, this would ultimately backfire, as Chaos found the Emerald on his own, leading to Calamity striking once again. Chaos, still filled with anger from what the Echidna tribe did 3,000 years ago, becomes perfect chaos, with the intent to destroy every living being that exists. Even the power of the egg carrier is nothing compared to this beast. However, it wasn't just Chaos who was trapped in the Master Emerald, was it?
Oh, it's you! The one who sealed Chaos in the Master Emerald! Tikal!
Tikal returns to her mortal form, and explains that Chaos will destroy everything thanks to him absorbing the Chaos Emerald's power. She tries to seal him back into the Master Emerald, but Sonic raises a good point. If we do that again, Chaos's anger will not go away and nothing will change. He'll just come back again someday to wreak havoc just for history to repeat itself. After pondering on what to do, each character from each storyline arrives to give Sonic a Chaos Emerald they found, including the little flicky inside Gamma, which makes me so happy. Chaos only absorbed the negative power of the emeralds, so if Sonic uses the positive power, he'll be able to take him down. It's time for Super Sonic. I genuinely really like this fight. Gameplay-wise, it's nothing to write home about, but man do I feel like a god playing it. The combination of the broken city environment, the distance between you and Chaos, and of course, Open Your Heart playing makes this final boss a highlight of the franchise. I do think the intensity is weighed down by the second phase changing the song to something much less interesting, but overall, this is definitely one of the better final bosses in the franchise, and ends the game off fantastically. Once Chaos is down, he returns to his original form, and the Chaos he took care of run towards him as happy as can be. The Chaos live peacefully with humans now, and both Tikal and Chaos finally move on to the afterlife, ending Sonic Adventure. Whilst the story of Tikal and Chaos doesn't get me as emotional as Gamma's, come on! Isn't this one of the coolest stories in the franchise by a long shot? It expands on what Sonic 3 and Knuckles established with the Master Emerald, whilst also being a fantastic story that works on its own. Figuring out the pieces of the puzzle as you play through the game is a blast, and I especially love the fact that Tikal is the one who gives you hints on what to do in the levels. She was helping you throughout the whole game and you didn't even know. Freaking awesome! With that, we finally covered all the stories and gameplay stuff in Sonic Adventure. Now, it's time for everything else I missed. One really big aspect of the game I've neglected to mention up until now is how the game looks. Obviously, there are huge differences between the original game on the Dreamcast and the DX version, so I'll boil that down to say that I prefer the Dreamcast visuals and that's that. What I want to focus on is how the story is presented, as it can either be the make or break for a lot of people. I'm sure you've seen countless memes, quoted moments, and more about the cutscenes in this game, and I can't deny that there is a reason for that. On my first playthrough, for example, I just couldn't take anything seriously because of the weird line deliveries, the awkward and stilted animation, and just how off everything is. However, if you have that problem with this game, I implore you to just think about what the developers wanted to do. The limitations of the Dreamcast and time crunch made the cutscenes this way, but the intentions of the story are always present. Do I prefer the way other games of the time went about the story? Absolutely. Do I think this game has a better story itself regardless of presentation? You bet. I still laugh at some awkward moments, don't get me wrong, but I can get emotional over this game thanks to knowing what the devs are trying to do. The passion oozes through these cutscenes, and it makes me truly appreciate what they are trying to do. Of course, this game was also the first to introduce the Chao Garden, and it's just as cool as people say it is. I personally haven't sunk time into this Chao Garden, I've been focusing more on Adventure 2s at the moment. This is Nagoshi, say hello. But it's still really nice to see the building blocks started here. I didn't really talk about them much, but I love the hub worlds you explore to reach the levels. They make every part of the world feel connected, and finding the little secrets hidden about is super fun. Whilst they are still very clearly late 90s, the CGI cutscenes and renders used for the opening and endings for each campaign are really cool to see. I especially love that awesome opening for giving every character the spotlight and foreshadowing perfect chaos. I love Gamma's ending screenshot for just making me cry, and the final story one is great too. Sonic Team clearly wanted to make this game the best they could with the limitations they had, and details like these just prove that more and more. Finally, it's time to talk about the incredible music. This was the first Sonic game to focus on the rock genre, and it was a great choice. Here are just a few of my favorite level themes. Speed Highway is an instant classic. Who doesn't love this song? Red Hot Skull for Red Mountain is absolute heat. It's 5 minutes of hellish bliss. Check it out. Skydeck has some really good tunes, but my favorite has to be the first one you hear. Crank the Heat Up for Final Egg is such a unique final level theme. Instead of filling you with determination to take down the big bad or something similar, it treats you like you already won, pumping you up like no other. Hot Shelter songs are really good too. It's very similar to Final Egg, but different enough to stand out. I've always loved Station Square's theme, ever since I first beat the game. The Egg Carrier's theme feels like you're in a place where you shouldn't be. It's both imposing and exciting. Now for the character themes. Oh, where do I begin? Sonic's theme, It Doesn't Matter, is a perfect representation of Sonic, even if I do prefer the version in Adventure 2, but that's irrelevant here. Unknown From M.E is such a vibe, man. Working as a precursor to the Knuckles raps from Adventure 2, there's a reason this became the basis for so many memes.
Here I come, rougher than the rest of them, the best of them, tougher than leather. You can call me Knuckles, unlike Sonic, I don't chuckle. I'd rather flex my muscles.
I've always been surprised at how much I enjoy My Sweet Passion. It's always a treat when it comes on. Being mainly used for cutscenes, Tikal's theme has always filled me with so much wonder and interest in what's going on. Definitely an underrated theme of this game. Finally, I've talked about it before and I'll say it again, Open Your Heart is damn incredible. For being the first main theme Crush 40 would compose, they did not hold back, as I think this is a top 10 Sonic song with lyrics. That's all I have today, so it's time to end this. Sonic Adventure isn't perfect. It's extremely rough with its presentation and some of the gameplay styles, but as a groundwork for what would come soon after, I think it did everything it needed to. If you're not going for 100%, I truly think this is the best adventure-styled Sonic game to play through casually. There's a lot less that can go wrong compared to the others, even if it doesn't reach the peaks of those others. This consistent greatness makes Adventure 1 my favorite of these games, and even then, I feel like it deserves a remake the most. Not only because of the presentation, but because the lows this game reaches on a 100% playthrough can be ironed out to make this definitely an incredible game. Something you'll be hearing me talk about a lot in this era of Sonic games videos is how close most of these get to genuine perfection. There's always these little things that make me unfortunately have to say that I don't love them, even when there are aspects that I do love to death. A modern take on these games could reach heights Sonic has never seen, but that's obviously for another time. For now, we just have to live with these games the way they are, and Adventure 1 is fantastic, despite its flaws. That's about it for this episode, and the next one is probably a more controversial one in terms of why I even included it in this mainline Sonic series. I'll explain it then, so for now, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.